The competition was a project that we were basically 5 invited architects, architectural groups, and the competition really asked for taking a series of old existing buildings, which are these military buildings that we're now in. We're in one of these ex-military buildings, sitting here, and restoring those, putting new program into them, which has to do with library, mediathek, administration offices, etc., and also exhibition space, fundamentally exhibition space, both temporary and permanent. And exhibition space for an extraordinary collection, which is called the FRAC collection, which is essentially an architectural, art-based collection. And so the fundamental problem of the program was that. Then there were a certain amount of elemental pieces which were in addition to that program. And of course you had the choice as an architect whether to kind of bring them inside the existing buildings or bring them outside. And at the same time, the program asked for making a building that could be also like a signal to the public. And so given those, that baggage of stuff, which is called the program, we developed very slowly, because our projects don't happen fast. The general idea was to take the existing buildings, and in the existing buildings, in the planar view, as well as in section, you basically have two grids, the grid of an 18th century building and the grid of a 19th century building. And by looking at these, analyzing them, we saw that, in fact, if we in a way, iterated those out into the space which is called the courtyard space, knowing full well that we had to make probably some kind of signal element within the courtyard space, we could create also a new element, which would bring the public, be like, in a sense, a door into the older buildings. So, working on that basic idea, we went through a lot of different iterations, working with this notion that these histories could be brought together. It would also would interface rather abruptly, and also create, in a sense, a kind of turbulent condition between their interface. And in developing this idea of the turbulence, we were fully aware that the notions of turbulence, or the notion of creativity, the notion of a process, was vital, because in a sense we wanted to materialize that in this signal element. The collection is a utopic collection, or an experimental collection. So the notion of experiment in architecture, or innovation, as you were using the word, and I would use the word experiment, because somehow for me it's more hands-on. And of course in France we refer to it as utopic, which I always tend to be a bit resistant over, because for me utopic is something which is out there, but we're not quite, it maybe can't be realized, which I think we're fully now in a period of time when we're realizing extraordinary utopias that have been imagined for quite a while. So anyway, getting back to all of that, we saw this opportunity to create materialize this experimental notion of the FRAC. What is the FRAC? So it's not a sign, it becomes symbolic, and out of this turbulent conditions we created 3 chimneys, if you want to call it that, or turbulent conditions. The tallest one, of course, becomes, in a sense, the signal, in a way. And the signal, therefore, takes on a light skin, which, of course, you've been interviewing electronic shadows, which they've fundamentally talked about how they've gone back into the structure of the notions of the point, the line, the surface. So when you go inside the interior of the turbulent spaces, you have 3 oculus, which let natural daylight down into them. In those 3 spaces, essentially one is where you buy tickets, you have this interface with the people that are running the FRAC. You can have a cup of coffee, etc. The second space, which is the tallest, is called the Gallery to Actuality, which is this notion that a very short exhibition can go on there, or a piece of installation work, etc. And then the third space, which is the shortest of the chimneys, we call the Video Gallery, and that will be essentially about showing numeric work, etc. And so you have, and a bit more like a mini cinema. So you have these three spaces. All of those spaces are really brought together just in one big space, which is the hall. And when you come in, you've got essentially three basic materials. You've got the continuation of the grey cement, which runs throughout the gallery spaces, and it's the public first foot down onto that, introduction onto that surface. And of course that becomes a really interesting project for us because it's in a sense involved in this issue of materialization and dematerialization of the stone that we're talking about. So that's where the idea came from. And that led to this idea of a project called Les Turbulences, or the turbulence.